everyone. I'm Hunter Myers, the host of the Brand Bite podcast and the founding creative director here at Virgin Design Co. I am really excited to be welcoming Hayleigh Hayhurst to the show today. So, Hayleigh is the founder of Espresso Podcast Production, which is a full service podcast agency that helps business owners and brands start, grow, and manage podcasts to reach the right audience and increase their revenue and community. And so I've really been wanting to have Hayleigh on the show here to talk about podcasting. Obviously, like I've started a podcast. I know a lot of you guys are considering starting podcasts, and Hayleigh is like truly the expert in the podcasting realm. So I'm going to kind of hand the reins over to her so she can tell you a little bit about her story, and then we'll really dive into the juicy details. So Hayleigh, tell us a little bit about how you got into this in the first place.
Yeah, thank you so much for that intro, Hunter. I'm very excited to be here. So, like you said, my name is Hayleigh Hayhurst, and I own Espresso Podcast Production. I have been doing this business for 4 years now. I just launched my 100th episode of my own podcast, Employee to Boss, where Hunter was an incredible guest. And really, my journey started back in 2017 when I started a hobby podcast with my friend. Very simple. Like we were just talking, we were in college. We had access to a podcast studio at the college. I went to school for journalism, so it had, podcast studios, video studios, all these things that we were like, maybe we should take advantage of this before we graduate. So we just started this fun hobby podcast. I never thought I would do anything with it. And once the pandemic happened, we did it for like about a year or so. I moved up to Seattle and she stayed in Las Vegas, and that's where I went to college. And we just decided that, doing long distance wasn't going to work for our relationship. And so she continues to do that podcast still today. And I moved up here and really was lost for a little bit. I know we're going to talk about like the real side of entrepreneurship, and I never really expected to start a business, to be completely honest. I was recently laid off due to the pandemic, moved up to Seattle. I only knew two people in this whole state of Washington. And I was just like, what am I going to do next? So I was applying to jobs. I was trying to figure it out. I had recently graduated, and an opportunity came up where it was my cousin's cousin, actually, who was like, hey, I know that you used to have a podcast. I have one for my business. Can you manage it for me? Like, I don't have the time. I'm like busy with my client load. I just need to like outsource this. So I said yes. And I was like, you'll pay me for this? This is incredible. Very low pay. I was like, I really don't care. I'm unemployed. I'll just do this for like fun. But like I said, she's in the business space. So she was able to connect me with so many different entrepreneurs. And that's really how my business started, just off of referral. So from her, she was like, Hayleigh, this is like something that people actually need help with. People are starting podcasts left and right, but they don't think about how much time it's going to take to manage it. They don't know how to promote it. They just don't know everything about podcasting, which is totally normal, right? Podcasting is newer, and it's like you don't know what you don't know. And so since I was doing podcasting for years with my friend, I had already developed a lot of those skills. And then obviously now, 4 years later, since starting Espresso Podcast Production, I've grown my skills, adapted more. I do more of the strategy now. So helping people actually grow along with management and all the other fundamentals to having a podcast.
Yes. Well, I love that you started one with a friend. I actually also went to journalism school, and so I know what it's all about. I love that you use the resources. That was something that I did not do. And so now like I've been learning podcasting on my own. And I love that you bring up, because I feel like this is so true, that people don't necessarily realize what they're, biting off when they decide to
Yeah.
start a podcast, right? Like we're excited about having conversations, we get the gear, right? We invest in that. And it's like, okay, now what do I do? Like do I just talk? So can you tell us a little bit more about what some of those like common things that people miss or overlook are?
Yes, definitely. So a lot of people I see in this space start podcasts because other people in their industry are, and they're like, oh, it's working for this person. I should start one. Or I love talking. This will be perfect for me. And yeah, that's a great reason to start a podcast. But it also if you don't set those goals early on of like, I want this result by this date, or I want to be able to reach this whenever I can, that's how you get burnt out because podcasting does take time. It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint, is what I always say. So, what I mean by that is a lot of my clients come to me because their podcast can take them upwards of like 10 hours a month. So, between recording, editing, promotion, and that's a lot of time for business owners. So they basically come to me to buy back their time and use it in better ways. But a lot of what I'm seeing right now in the business space is people wanting to start their podcasts, especially video podcasts, to connect with their audience more and get those clips out of it. So being able to post on TikTok, post on Instagram, really build their expertise and visibility online through podcasting, which is amazing. It has transformed so many businesses, not only my clients, but I mean, look at like the top 10 podcasts in Apple charts. Like that, those businesses were transformed by their podcasts. And so while it is this amazing marketing strategy for growth, you also have to be realistic where it does take time and you're not going to wake up tomorrow and be like the next Joe Rogan, for lack of a better example, right? You're not going to wake up and be Alex Cooper tomorrow. You're going to have to put in hours to actually become like a successful podcaster. And I think that's what a lot of people don't think about. You it's dedication, honestly. But that being said, I don't want to deter anyone from starting. Like I said, it's such an amazing marketing tool.
Yeah, well, I really love that you bring up the point that it takes time. I think this is something that I know I've really struggled with. I know a number of other entrepreneurs struggle with because again, we're looking online and all we see is the highlight reel, right? Like you
Yep.
see all these people who are killing it in the space. Like the one that I think of a lot of the time is like Jenna Kutcher or Amy
Mhm.
Porterfield, who have been podcasting for a really long time. They were blogging before that. And so you look at them, it's like, why am I not there? And so I love that you bring up that this is a marathon. Like this takes consistency, this takes dedication. It's important to have goals as well. That way you know what milestones you're reaching, all of that. So great point to make. When you think about like the importance of podcasting, right? So like obviously you talked about people who enjoy talking a lot or are like, yeah, like I really want to use this as a marketing tool or really like content, like repurposing and stuff like that. Like are there other things that make a podcast worthwhile to a business? Like what are the benefits of having a podcast? Why would someone dedicate the time to do it? Why would someone start one in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I will say one of the biggest things is just building your brand credibility. So, I give this example of if you're in the business, you're a business coach, for example, and there's a one business coach that you want to work with, and then there's another, and like they're tied in your brain. Like they both are amazing. They both, you've been following them both for years. But let's say one has a podcast. You're going to be able to dive into their content more and hear their expertise. Maybe they have an episode that's on the specific topic that you're wanting to hire them about. And then you could be like, okay, this is the one I want to go with. So it does build your brand expertise and just in your mind. Like, not everyone has a podcast. And I think if you are in the podcast space or thinking about creating one, it looks like everyone has one, right? You're like, oh, this is so oversaturated. But the truth is, it's not. Like, there's still room in this industry for great voices. And that's my next point. Like, if you have a message that you want to share with the world, a podcast is a great way to do that. So, this year, one of my goals is to work with a really big industry, like a really big client who has a lot of reach. And the reason for that is I would love to work on a podcast where they have so much impact in the world. They have so much, like their voice carries weight. And so
Mm.
you can do that with a small audience. You could do that with a mid-sized audience. But obviously, the more people you're talking to, the more weight your voice has. So I love working with smaller clients, but that is really my goal for this year, just because like the impact you can have just by whatever topic it is. Maybe you're talking to single moms and there's one mom out there who's like, this podcast changed my life. Or you're talking to entrepreneurs and they are, maybe in this like really scary part of business and they listen to your podcast, Hunter, and they're like, oh, other people experience this too. Like, okay, I won't quit. Like that has so much impact on not only your audience, but just the whole world. So I think that just like the more people that can be out here and sharing their voice, the better it is. And obviously, marketing for your business, that's great too. But I think the deeper why to podcasting should be more than just wanting to book your next client or make money from it. Like it should be wanting to help people and actually have this impact that you can have with a podcast.
I really love that point of the message, that this is an opportunity for you to essentially speak to people, right? Like they may not be speaking back, but it's an opportunity for you to share your story with them, to share your journey, to share your personality as well. I
Mhm.
feel like for me,
Totally.
especially, podcasting is way easier to share my personality than most other like social marketing platforms are. So I really, really love that. But a question that I have as we're talking through this is like,
Mhm.
how do you get people to actually see the message or get to the message, right? Like marketing. So you've made the podcast, you've invested the time and the money into like building it. Now, how the hell do you get people to listen to it, right? Like you have this message, you want to be impacting people, but that's hard to do if no one is listening. So what like tips do you have for that? Any feedback for people, maybe mistakes that you see people making, anything, just enlighten all of us on that piece.
Yeah, so I see this a lot where people get really excited and they're like, let me start my podcast. It's happening. Okay, they're recording, they get their trailer episode up, they make everything perfect on the production side, and then they post it, and then it's just crickets. And they're like, I started this podcast. Where are all these people that I thought were going to come and listen? And the point that they're most likely forgetting about is actually talking about your podcast and promoting it. So, yes, this is probably the biggest mistake I see a lot of podcasters make is not talking about it and promoting it. So, promoting your podcast could be anything from just literally getting on your stories and saying, hey guys, I'm starting a podcast, come and listen, and really inviting your audience in. Another way is to go heavy on marketing. So this is sometimes where I help my clients of really showing up everywhere. I know we keep hearing this keyword of omnipresence, but it's real, right? You want to be able to reach your ideal clients where they are. So whether that be on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, whatever it is, like you need to be there inviting them in to listen to your podcast. This is where I see a lot of people make this mistake of, yes, podcast platforms are in some way searchable. So if you're looking for a podcast about, I don't know, knitting or crocheting or something, right? You're going to go on Apple Podcasts and maybe look it up, but then there's going to be tons. And if you are maybe number 12 on the list as the podcaster, you might not be reached by as many people as the top one. So it's up to you to really show up in a way that invites people in to listen to your podcast. Now, I have tons of strategies about this, and it's different for each industry, but the most important thing is don't forget to actually invite people to come and listen. And don't forget to talk about it. I think as business owners, we always have so much going on. I mean, launching new things every quarter, new offers, new clients to take care of. And if you don't cut that time out to actually promote your podcast, it might not have that ROI that you're hoping for. So the more you can get people to share it for you, the more you can promote it, the better SEO you have. Like that's just going to be the best way to actually promote it and see that growth. But again, remember, even if 20 people are listening, okay? That's great. Those are 20 people who are listening to your voice every single week. And you might not know who those 20 people are, But that's better than not having a podcast and not nurturing those 20 people. I think that if you are thinking about starting a podcast, it is important to be really realistic with what goals you want to have. So look up stats of like, what is a normal listener rate in my industry? It might be lower than you're thinking, honestly. So while yes, you can have thousands and thousands of listeners on your episodes, you might be able to have that same impact by doing like 50 listeners with really great episodes and really pulling them into a different funnel. Let's say like you offer a freebie or you offer like coaching calls to everyone who listens to your podcast. Like that funnel is very important with seeing those results that you want.
I really think you've brought up an excellent point about remembering that your expectations really have to fit your market. We
Mhm.
can't go into this thinking that like day 3, I've got my like 2 episodes on there and I'm about to be hitting top charts, right? Like that's not how it works. And so really paying attention to the industry trends, the numbers there. So I think that is all great. I do have one more question for you, actually a couple more, but one more pertaining to podcasting,
Yeah.
which is what makes a good episode. So you brought up like having funnels and other things to direct people to, but when it comes to an episode, like what makes people want to listen in the first place?
Yeah, I love this question. So to take a step back, the first thing I do with any of my clients is literally do that goal setting that I was talking about a couple minutes ago. Of we set their specific goals. So if they want to be like a talk show, they want to be the next Oprah. Okay, that's a different strategy than someone who just wants to get one client a quarter from their podcast. Those are going to be two way different strategies with marketing, everything, right? Content. And so do that goal setting and see what you actually want to achieve, and then we'll work backwards from there. So, one of the things that I thought of when you were talking is really making sure that your content is good, your audio quality is good, and you're always staying on track with everything. So, I just put up a podcast or a YouTube video of choosing your niche. And this is something that I want to really demystify of like, what is a niche? Why do we need one? Really, like, if you have a niche, the more niche your podcast can be, the better. That way, back to your question, you can create the best content for your audience. So if you're having episodes about gardening one week and like bookkeeping the next and like how to have like a CEO mindset, those are going to really confuse your audience. And so, I mean, you could have that, but your audiences might be confused. So instead, if you can really niche down into exactly what your ideal audience would like to hear, the more engaged they will be and the more likely they'll come back and listen to every episode. So things that make a great podcast episode are good audio quality and content that will resonate with your audience. Just making sure that every week you're not saying the same thing, but you're in the same niche. You're giving them the same value. The way I do this on my podcast is it's always the same thing, right? People's journey from employee to boss. Well, everyone has a different story, so we can go a lot of different ways with it, but people know exactly what to expect when they come to me. And since I have guests on, the content's never ending. Everyone has a story. So making sure that you are very clear with what your niche is, exactly who your ideal client is, and then from there, just creating content that they love. This is, number one, great content is the thing that will make a great podcast. So making sure that you're always clear on that.
I think that's a really, really good point, especially being essentially consistent, right? Like your audience needs to know what they're signing up for when they come onto the podcast. And
Mhm.
I think this is something in a message that I kind of reiterate a lot as a brand designer, which is like
Mhm.
your people need to know who you are and they need to know what they're going to be walking into throughout like any touch point that they find. So I love that this is also really important within podcasting. So I know that we've talked a lot about podcasting. We talked a little bit about your journey. Since you've been doing this for 4 years, and this is my favorite question to ask everybody. So if you're listening, we are switching a little bit off of podcasting here, and we'll be talking about what is the one thing, Hayleigh, that you would change about the entrepreneurial space?
This is such a good question. Okay. I just went to a networking event this week and I was talking to someone and they were asking me all about podcasting and business questions. And like, I love that podcasts can bring businesses money. I love that podcasts can bring new clients to businesses and like increase their revenue. But at the same time, I kind of miss the time where people are doing podcasts just for fun or just to educate their audience. And this is true for every single industry, every single thing, right? Having a money only mindset in your business, I think can really burn you out. But this is what we see on social media of like the hustle, like always having a new offer, always making 6, 7 figures, like 8 figures now. I'm like, I can't even visualize what 8 figures looks like in my head. But things like this where it's always like never can be good enough. And I think that if we do stuff in our business that just like brings us pure joy or really makes us creative, and Hunter, you and I are both in very creative spaces. So that might be why this is my answer. But I think if you can do one creative thing that just brings you joy in your business and not focus it as like a monetary goal, that is that's like what I'm trying to do now with different things in my in my world, right? And that's one thing that I wish would change a little bit of letting go of this hustle culture. And I think there has been a lot of changes in this, but still, I'm like, when are we gonna hear about 9 figures? When are we gonna hear about like the 8 figure months? I'm like, what is this? It's just never ending. And for newer entrepreneurs or really anyone who's like, I'm successful in what I do, right? Like but what I'm doing is not what, let's say, like an 8 figure, 7 figure earner is doing. But even though that's, I'm successful in this, but my goals can be different and we can both have success. So I think just a little more transparency in the space and just doing things that will bring you joy.
I think that is so important, and because it's also kind of I call it a soapbox. Like I get on this topic all the time because I feel like it's really unfair, for especially newer entrepreneurs, but also entrepreneurs that just aren't in a place in their business to be making 8 figures. Like there are like
Yeah.
service businesses, right? Like if you are a solopreneur, the likelihood of you making 8 figures is like incredibly slim,
Yes.
right? But that's not what's being shared online. Like you're seeing these 8 figure numbers, but you're not seeing what it took to get to those 8 figure numbers. You're not seeing the amount of
Yeah.
money that they have paid to get to those 8 figure numbers or the number
Or
of
the
people on their
teams.
team.
Exactly.
Exactly. Exactly. And I feel like it's so unfair to yourself to be comparing yourself to those people. And I say this as like someone who absolutely compares herself to those people. Like I don't want to be in that space. And I know that there are a number of other entrepreneurs who don't. And so I really love that you have brought up this point of having more transparency and recognizing that there is success, like the definition of success is different across the board. It is
Yeah.
not, there is not one level of success. There's not one measurement that you have to reach here as an entrepreneur in order to be successful. Like you get to set those goalposts. And I think it's something that, especially I know that your podcast is like employee to boss. I think it's something that when you're transitioning over into a boss, it's hard to kind of get into the swing of that because as an employee, like there are milestones, right? Like you have someone who's like, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Once you do this, you can have a promotion. But as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, you're on your own. Like you really
Exactly.
are. You have to be able to motivate yourself. You have to be able to set the milestones for yourself. And so I love that you have brought this up and that you've brought up having fun.
Mhm.
Like one of the main reasons for leaving a regular ass job is so that you have more fun. You don't have someone micromanaging you. You don't have to do necessarily all of the tasks that you were doing in your normal 9 to 5 job. Like you have more control. And in that control, you have the opportunity to make it fun. So, Hayleigh, love the changes that you hope to see. I also hope to see these changes. Thank you so much for your time and sharing all of this. How can people find you? Because I know there are plenty of podcasters out here or people who want to start podcasting who like absolutely need to reach out to you.
Yeah, well, thank you. This has been a great time. The best place to find me is on Instagram. So my handle is Espresso Podcast Production. And also on my website, espressopodcastproduction.com, I have a free podcast checklist that you can download. So if you are someone thinking about starting a podcast, this really outlines like step by step what to do. Because if you go down that Google rabbit hole of those million things to actually you need to do to start a podcast, it just is so stressful. So I cleaned it all up for you. You can go on my website, download it, and let me know if you have any questions.
I love it. And everyone, I will make sure that that information is in the show notes so you can easily get a hold of Hayleigh. Hayleigh, again, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was a blast.
Thank you so much for having me.